edging towards the end of what has been flaming June here in the UK. This week it is time to focus on our florals. Thinking back to sort of just over 10 years ago when I had my first allotment plot, having flowers at an allotment was pretty much frowned upon. However, I can say quite truly that just about every single plot down here now actually has them, which is absolutely brilliant. And surrounding me at the moment is not just flowers, but also an awful lot of bees. And they might not be particularly happy with me today because at this time of year, there's a lot of deadheading to do. So I have my digitalis, I have my dianthus, I have lupins, I have got my sweet peas, I have got my chrysanthemums, I have got so many things, including my old spring bulb bed, which really needs to be tidied up because at this time of year all the leaves and foliage has actually died off, which means all the energy has already been sucked back down into the bulbs and it just needs to be sorted. Now, the way that you actually prune or deadhead each of these is going to be slightly different. Now, some of these may actually be able to give you a second burst of life. And actually, we're just heading into July and we're not quite ready to give up on our florals just yet. So if I'm looking at something like my digitalis over here, I can see that there's an awful lot of seed pods where the flowers have been. Now what I could do, obviously thinking about seed saving, is I could definitely leave some of these to dry off, and actually some of them are pretty dry, and that means I'm going to be able to save some seeds. However, there's an awful lot of them. I don't need that many, so I am going to prune these back. So just getting some secateurs. I'm actually going to go quite low down on these ones. Now, as I say, we could actually get a second flourish because they are, to all intents and purposes, sort of biennials, although these did flower in the first year. So it's telling me that it may be a slightly different genus, but I'm going to go for it because as much as I love them, I don't want this many to self-seed for next year. So quite low down to the base of this one, I'm actually going to give it a trim off, just again at an angle with some clean secateurs, just so that it's going to tidy this space up. Now what I can see as well is there's an awful lot of sort of fallen leaves on the floor. Now I'm going to leave those as they are because what they're going to do is obviously they're going to mulch down quite naturally, but they're also giving some ground coverage to the soil in those spaces, which means that it's going to hopefully stop any of the weeds coming through. And I have a lot of weeding to do at the moment because not only have our vegetables and our flowers loved the sun and the heat, but so have the weeds big time. So I'm just going to do another one of those, and then I'm going to have a look at my delphinium. Now you can see the bees are just behind me here. They are still in flower. However, you can also see on this one here that there are seed heads forming, and actually they look absolutely beautiful. Now with this one, I'm not going to go right the way down to the ground. What I'm going to do is I'm going to look to where there are sort of forking off on either side, and I'm just going to trim at that point. Now it does mean this does still have flowers on, so actually going to be quite pretty. So I'm going to put those in a bucket because I can use those as cut flowers. Maybe not the seed head bits, but there's certainly lots of flowers on there. I'm sorry bees, you are everywhere. So again, same thing, just looking for where I've got that fork where I actually still have. I'm just going to go a little bit higher on that one, 2 more, because I do still have some flowers on that one and they are still going to come true. Now obviously there's those ones, but I do also have my lupins. Now I'm always quite surprised when people say that they can't grow lupins because my lupins are quite literally loopy. And what you can see with these is they have sort of they've gone over, and we're starting to get those seed pods. Now most of them are still juvenile, which means they're not ready to explode, and they are exploding seeds. And actually if you're gardening with children, that's quite exciting. However, I can see some which have dried. Again, they're going to explode, they're going to disperse their seeds everywhere because that's what they do, and I need to trim those off. Now with the lupins, if I cut them sort of just at the end of that spent spear, they will come back. I will get a second flourish on those ones, and I'm pretty confident that that's going to happen. Now, new to me this year are actually my chrysanthemums. Now, with my chrysanthemums, they're very similar looking in terms of the tops to calendula. They're getting these little sort of claw seeds on top. And again, if we're deadheading these, they're very similar to quite a lot of things. Maybe if you're thinking about dahlias, as soon as those flower heads are spent, just going to pull them off. Now again, with dahlias, it's quite easy to tell which ones are the spent flowers because they go sort of that pointy shape at the end, whereas the buds are more rounded. And actually with the chrysanthemums, you can see because they do, and it's so pretty, these little seed heads. Now with some of these, I am going to save them, and others, I'm literally just going to drop them on the ground because that's what nature would do. And if nature does it, it means this bed should be absolutely crazy by next year. Now I do have my antirrhinums as well, all the nice little snapdragons, which are beautiful. And again, we've got some spent seed heads on those, and I'm just going to sort of go down quite low, just like I did with the digitalis, and give them a trim off. It's possible they may give a second flourish. It's quite unlikely. There's another bee. However, it means that if I keep some of that foliage at the bottom, they may, again, being biennials, actually come back next year. Alternatively, again, I'm going to leave some of these to happily go to seed because I love this area. I do need to get some supports in here as well. And obviously I'm going to leave some for the bees. Now, the final one is really the lavender. Now is the time to trim back your lavender. And again, you may upset some of your bees. So if you've got quite a few lavender bushes and just grabbing them together and giving them a good old trim, maybe leave one of those. So these guys are really happy because, let's face it, we can encourage the pollinators by having lots of florals. It's actually going to help with all of our fruit bushes. And I have to say, this year, my fruit bushes are looking absolutely